Don't miss a beat, join the notification squad by clicking that bell. You'll get notified every time I upload a video, and be sure to join our Discord to talk and get help with your code. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Source Code. My name is Deshaun, and in this episode, we are going to be recreating Pathfinder's Grapple hook from Apex Legends. Now, this is a new series that I'm starting, so I'm not quite sure how it's going to take, if people are going to like it. I think it could be fun, and we're just going to basically be recreating different abilities, characters, probably not full characters, but different abilities, features from various different games. And if you have an idea, be sure to leave a comment down below, and also be sure to like this video to show your support, to let me know you guys want to see more of these kind of videos. So yeah, so we're going to be recreating, to my best ability, Pathfinder's Grapple hook from Apex Legends. And now, obviously, when we do the series, things are not going to be exact because obviously there is limitations in Minecraft that are not present in, you know, game engines, or real game engines. So this is what it is going to look like. And you can see here that it has a block range and is showing us that that range is too far, because in Apex Legends, you can only shoot his grapple hook so far. So if we do that, then it pulls us, and then we get pulled towards where our arrow lands. And I think we're going to make this so it just instantly shoots out, and we don't have to charge it up, because in Apex Legends, you don't really charge it up. You just kind of shoot it. So I think that would be better. And also what we are going to be able to do is when we want to eject ourselves, we can just press sneak, and it's going to shoot us off in the direction that we're looking. Again, in Apex Legends, you can't really do that, but you can use the physics of the game to sort of allow you to maneuver around. So that's sort of what I was trying to do here. So this was my best attempt, and I mean, I didn't spend crazy amounts of time on this. I'm sure if I spent a lot more time with sort of the mathematics and all the other things, I could make it feel a little bit better. But I'll leave that for you guys. So obviously all the code will be on GitHub, so go over there and check it out. And yeah, be sure to let me know how you guys like the series, and let's dive in. Okay, so we are switching gears here to our IntelliJ, and I am using IntelliJ, obviously. And you want to go ahead and create an empty project, and then after you create your empty project, you can go ahead and we're going to do a new or file new module. And if you aren't using the Minecraft for IntelliJ, go ahead and make yourself a Java project and add the jar file, or use Maven and do it through Maven. But I have Minecraft for IntelliJ, which is a really great add-on for IntelliJ. So be sure to pick that up, because it will help a lot, and it'll sort of streamline the process for a lot of things. So we're going to go ahead and do com.tsu forum, and then this is going to be lc01, and then we're just going to copy that. Next 1.13.2, and done. Cool. So in most of these videos, I'm going to kind of assume that you have a pretty basic understanding of Spigot development in Java. If you don't, I would recommend going back onto my channel and searching for some of our Spigot bucket series. We have a lot. We cover, I think, pretty much anything and everything you're going to need to work with this series. So take like a day to go through, watch some of those videos, sort of get an understanding, and then come back to these. I will explain some things, but I'm not really going to be diving into details on everything. So first things first, let's go ahead and create a new Java class. So we're going to go ahead and call this events manager, or event manager. And this is going to go ahead and implements listener, sorry, and that's going to be bucket. And generally speaking, whenever you're importing things, probably 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to be making sure you're importing the bucket or Spigot version of something, or Minecraft, just as a word to the wise. So now let's go ahead and get a call for our main plugin. Oops, or for our main class, if I can type. This is going to be plugin. This is going to be public. The name of your class, event manager. Then we're going to make a reference to our main class again, and we're going to call that plugin. You can call these things whatever you want to, and we're going to say this.plugin equals plugin. Great, now we'll be able to get things from our main class should we need them, and we will. And then the next thing is, let's go ahead and say event handler, public void, and this is going to be grapple event. And now you can, let's just go ahead and do grapple event. There we go. So now you can name this whatever you want to. I'm just going to name mine Grapple event. And then this is going to be entity shoot bow event. And well, actually, if we wanted to make it so it wasn't a charge up, we would probably want to do it under interact and look to see if they have a bow and arrow in their hand. But never mind that. But that's what you would do. So you would basically just spawn an arrow into the world. You would set the velocity, which I will kind of show you what we're going to do there. And then you would just check to see that the player has a bow in their hands. We could do that. It really wouldn't take that much more time, but I already have everything laid out, and it would just be easier to do this way because I know it works and I don't have to worry about doing bug tests. So first things first is we want to go ahead and check to see if the entity event or event entity is an instance of a player. If it is, then we can cast a player. Other than that, we don't really need to check to see if other entities are shooting bows because it's not important to us, because unless you want skeletons grappling all over the place, it's probably not going to be all that great. So then now we can go ahead and say player, and then let's go ahead and instance player here, and then we're going to go ahead and say event.getEntity. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say arrow equals instance of arrow event.get projectile. I don't really know if mobs can shoot anything other than arrows out of a bow, but if you can, maybe you want to check to see if the projectile is an instance of an arrow. I'm just going to assume that it is. And then next we want to go ahead and say arrow.setVelocity. And now you don't have to do this one. This one is just because when an arrow is shot, it kind of has this weird arc because you charge it up, obviously. So it kind of has this weird arc and it doesn't go perfectly straight, and we kind of want that. So we're going to set a little bit of extra velocity on it. We're just going to multiply its normal velocity times 2, so that way it shoots a little straighter, and then we'll have a check that once it gets past 20 blocks, it's going to delete it. The arrow's just going to delete itself anyways. So let's go ahead and say arrow.getVelocity.multiply, and then we're just going to go ahead and say 2D. And great. So next thing we're going to do is we need to create a bucket runnable. And now this is where pretty much the meat of our plugin is going to happen. So we only need one set of parentheses. Then if you're using IntelliJ, you can press Alt-Enter on it and implement methods, and you'll get the run. And then at the end here, at the break, we're going to want to go ahead and say run task timer. This is where we need our main class, and we're going to say plugin 00 for the delay and for the period. So we want it to happen every tick. Every tick this is going to run. Now, if you're putting this on a server, this isn't really production per se code. So if you're putting this on a server, and especially a server that has potential or is large, you are probably going to want to throw in a few checks and a few balances. So that would probably be for the best. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and say is if arrow.getLocation.distance, and then we're going to go ahead and get the player's location. And if it is greater than 20, greater than 20 is good, then we're going to go ahead and run this code. And then we're going to go ahead and say arrow.remove. And then this is going to cancel. So this .cancel will cancel the runnable. And then we can go ahead and say, we don't need to send the player a message because nothing happened. It doesn't send the message in the actual Apex Legends, so we don't need to do it here. So we want to go ahead and say player.isSneaking, and this is where we want it to set the player's velocity into the direction that they're looking. So when they reach the end of their grapple or in the middle of it, they can sort of pull off and shoot themselves in another direction. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can just have this continue the velocity that the player was already headed and then shoot them off that way. So that's a little bit more advanced than sort of what I really want to accomplish here. But if you want to do that and you want to go above the odds, go ahead and do that. And if you do that, put it on GitHub, send it to me. I'd love to see it. Put a jar file in there, whatever you want to do. I'd love to see somebody make a more advanced version of this. So let's go ahead and say player.setVelocity. We're going to go ahead and say player.getLocation.getDirection. And then we're going to go ahead and say multiply. And then we're going to just times that by 2. And then again, we're going to go ahead and remove the arrow, and we're going to cancel this runnable. Great. So now we've threw a couple checks in there beforehand, and now we want to go ahead and say is if arrow dot is on ground and arrow, not arrow is dead. So we want to make sure the arrow is not dead. Now, an arrow being on ground doesn't necessarily mean that it's on a flat surface. When it says on ground, it just means the arrow is connected to a block. So whether that's a block in the air, or on the side of the block, bottom of the block, top of the block, doesn't matter what face it's on, as long as it is on a block. So that's all you really need to think about. So now let's go ahead and say vector direction, and now this is so it knows so vector direction. And this is going to equal arrow dot get location dot to vector subtract, and then we want to get the player's location, and then not locale, location, and then we want to send that to a vector, and then we want to go on the end here, and then we want to normalize this. And let's make sure we got everything right. Arrow.get location dot to vector dot subtract. Oh, we imported the wrong vector. See, told you. We need to import the bucket vector. That helps. Then let's go ahead and say player dot set velocity direction, and then we want to just multiply this by 2. Or sorry, not 2, 1.2. Now you can multiply yours by whatever value you want, just know that it is going to pull them extremely fast. But this could also work good because if you do this on a lesser time, you could have this pull harder, which means it's just going to pull more directly in that direction. But then you sort of start to slow down, and then it's sort of like these really jagged, just like pull, slow pull, slow pull. So it really just depends what you really want it to feel like. And then the next thing we're going to go ahead and say is draw line. And we're going to go ahead and make this method in just 1 second. And this is going to take player.getLocation, arrow.getLocation, and a double. And that's going to be the space between our particles. Oops. Great. So let's just go ahead and change this to 0.1 and this one to 0.2, and then this is going to be a double, and we're going to call that space. So let's go ahead and get the world. So world equals 0.1.get world, and now you could change this to player, and then you could change this to arrow location if you want. Do whatever you want. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say validate. And we want to make sure that it is true, and we want to see if 0.2 is world, or if 0.2's world is equal to the player's world. And then if not, we're going to send a message at the end and say lines, or we should probably just say particles. Particles cannot be drawn in different worlds. Now, obviously, this would be pretty impossible to do. Shoot an arrow in one world and be in another, but just in case, always best to do it that way. Next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and create some vectors here, and this is going to be p1, and this is just going to be 0.1 dot to vector. We'll duplicate this. We'll change this to p2, and this will be also 0.2 to vector. And the next is we want to go ahead and get the distance between the points. So let's go ahead and say vector, and this is going to be vector. We're going to say p2 clone subtract p1, and then we're going to go ahead and say normalize multiply, and we're going to multiply that by the space. And then another variable here, which is going to be a double, and this is going to be covered, or the distance covered. We're going to set that to 0 because obviously they haven't covered anything. And then let's go ahead and create a for loop for covered is less than distance. We're going to go and say p1.add our vector. And we forgot to get the distance. So we're going to go ahead and say double distance equals 0.1 distance from point 2. That helps. And next thing is let's go ahead and say particle. And so now we're going to actually be spawning our particle. So I'm going to be using redstone because you can change the color of redstone, and I believe it's one of like the only particles that doesn't really have like an animation or sort of like a physics to them. They sort of just spawn where they are, and then they kind of just stay there. I think they're like one of the only ones. All the other ones kind of either have like a blossom, a fizzle, or a float or something. So let's go ahead and say particle dust options equals new particle dust options. And then let's go ahead and say color yellow, and then size 1. Now you can change your size to whatever size you want, and you can change your color to whatever color you want, but I think yellow is the closest to we're going to get to the actual color of Pathfinder's zip or grapple hook. So now we're going to go ahead and say is world spawn particle. We want to say particle dot redstone, and we want to go ahead and say p1.getx, p1.gety, and p1.getz. And then we want to go ahead and put 1, or the count of how much we want to spawn each time. We only need 1. And then dust options at the end, so that way it is colored. And then we're going to go ahead and say covered plus equals space. And now keep in mind, if you cannot use particle or redstone particle if you do not have dust options. It just won't work. It will tell you that it can't, like, data can't be null or something like that. Something along those lines, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so one last thing we have to do inside of this chunk of text or chunk of code here, we want to go ahead and say is if player.getLocation.distance, and then we'll say arrow.getLocation is less than or equal to 3. We want to go ahead and cancel everything and remove the arrow. And we're doing this because if we don't, the player will infinitely be pulled towards this arrow until they either sneak or the arrow just despawns or they pick it up. So we don't want that to happen. All right, now moving over to our main class, let's just go ahead and say this, .getServer.getPluginManager.register events, and there's going to be a new event manager. It's going to take the main class or this, and then it's going to ask for the plugin again, and that is going to be this. So now let's open up our Maven. Let's go Lifecycles, and let's go ahead and install. And I will see you guys over in Minecraft. Okay, so our server has started. You can see there that our plugin has loaded. And so now, as soon as my items load, let's go ahead and say PL. You can see here that LC01 has been loaded. And now if we shoot, oh, gotta get a little closer. If we shoot, we get pulled towards it. And now you can make it so as soon as the arrow is shot, it will create the particle line to actually see the path. And then if you, you saw there that we press sneak and we got shot up much, much higher. And like I said, this isn't perfect because I can just sort of do something like that. And obviously there isn't cooldowns on this, but feel free to tweak this as much as you guys want. This is for you guys and for you guys to sort of explore and have fun with. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a comment down below for the next ability from a game you want me to recreate. Now keep in mind, I am going to try to stay away from anything that's going to involve a custom texture. So that way, you know, if it's some like crazy sword or a crazy like flaming sword or something like that, we could probably, you know, we can do the fire animations around a character, but we're not going to create, you know, custom textures or custom things like that. Anything that can just be done with code in vanilla Minecraft items, leave a comment and I will start exploring some of these things. I do have a couple in store right now. I'm going to be sort of cheesing off the hype train of Apex Legends and recreating a few Apex Legends abilities because I think some of them are pretty cool abilities. One being the Grapple of Pathfinder. Although the Grapple itself is not a super innovative idea for Apex Legends, Just the idea that it is in the game, and physics does play a huge role in how it operates and how you can catch momentum and all that in the game. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Be sure to leave a comment, drop a like, and subscribe.